it's about effectiveness. It's about the net numbers, the performance. So own less, better quality, less leverage, you're in a good position, grow it that way, you can be in great shape.
Welcome to the Wealth Strategy Secrets of the Ultra Wealthy podcast, where we help entrepreneurs like you exponentially build wealth through passive income to live a life of freedom and prosperity. Are you tired of paying too much in taxes, gambling your future on the stock market, and want to learn about hidden strategies for making your money work for you? And now your host, Dave Wolcott, serial entrepreneur and author of the best-selling book, The Holistic Wealth Strategy.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode on Wealth Strategy Secrets. Today's guest is Jim Sheils. Jim is an experienced real estate entrepreneur and also partner at Southern Impression Homes in Florida, where he specializes on the build-to-rent sector offering with new, low-density rental homes. Jim is also the co-founder of 18 Summers, targeting work-life balance for business leaders. And he also co-authored with his wife, Jamie, the bestseller, The Family Board Meeting. Really excited to dive into the discussion here today with Jim. I think you're going to learn a ton today, especially with regards to how to use build to rent in your portfolio and potentially even using this as a strategy for becoming a real estate professional that potentially your spouse or yourself could qualify for managing portfolio of build-to-rent homes. Hope you enjoy. Really appreciate you having you on the show, Jim, and looking forward to the discussion.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Dave. Good to be here.
Yeah, very cool. So why don't you help the audience get to know you a little bit? Let's talk about your background. How did you get into, real estate and build-to-rent in the first place?
Yeah, my real estate journey started almost 25 years ago. And I had been looking for something to do on my own, branch out on my own, become an entrepreneur. And I kept coming back to real estate, and I liked the quote at the time, which was 8 out of 10 millionaires made their money in real estate, which was pretty appealing to me. I also like the tangibility. So like everyone else, I started with that first house, 432 North M Street, doing old rehabs, fixing them up, renting them or reselling them. Did well with that, and then grew into a bulk foreclosure model where I was buying bulk foreclosures about 5-6 years into my career. And that went well, especially after 2008, 2009. I moved from California to Florida, and that was a really good time to be in the foreclosure game with all the 2008 meltdown. But by about 2014, we were seeing a lot of the deals that I focused on going away. And my now building partner came to me. We had done some deals together and said, hey, what if we build our own investment property for ourselves and investors instead of trying to find old houses to renovate? And that was the inception. And that was really where I hit stride. Real estate has definitely bought back my time, given me financial space I never thought I'd have in my life. But the stride really hit about a decade ago when I went into build to rent. Today, we work with nearly 1,000 investors. We've done over 8,000 units. Created over 180 million in equity for our investors, 44 million in recurring revenue. We have almost $1 billion under asset management, and we grow our rental portfolios with our investors in high growth markets in Florida. So not Miami, not Tampa, not Orlando. Those areas are a little out of whack when it comes to cash flow and what we like for the affordability index. But a lot of second tier markets in Florida is where we're focused right now. We have about 5,000 lots that we're building out, a combination of single family, duplexes, and quads.
Yeah, really fascinating. And what did you do before real estate?
I was in corporate America for about 2 years. That's all I could last.
Okay. You made it that far.
I made it that long. And I remember I was sitting in a cubicle doing a pamphlet for irregular bowel syndrome for a pharmaceutical company. And it was almost worse than it sounds, Dave. And so I didn't last long in corporate America. I literally quit that second job after a big promotion after my first year there and went the entrepreneurial route and haven't looked back.
Yeah. It's always interesting to hear what that light bulb moment was for people that really made them, take this leap into getting into passive income, investing alternatively, right, from what Wall Street would have you believe is the only way to invest.
Yeah. Well,
so interesting. Yeah, I was just going to ask, so how does your model work, right? Typically in build to rent, right, we've seen a lot of players kind of on the smaller side. Most of our audience is interested in more passive investing because they're looking to scale, right, their portfolios as well as their time. So how does your model really work?
Well, the foundation of our model is new construction. I've done a few thousand of the old fixer uppers and now, several thousand of the new construction. And our first and foremost of our model is only new construction. We don't do fixer uppers anymore. We don't offer them. Most of our investors are high net worth, wealthy people that want to buy back their time. They're not looking to create a second job or have too much involvement. They want to be in real estate, but have a lot of the heavy lifting handled for them. So what we do is we try to bring in all of the unknowns and needed questions, and we answer them. First and foremost, where do you build? Where is there rental demand? What type of property? Where are we going to have the best returns, especially even in high growth markets? How do we finance them? One of the most important things I think we do, Dave, is when you do a property with us, you don't need a construction loan. And also, we're on what's called a continual build cycle. We have zero bank debt. We are financed by a parent company that owns part of our company now, a 330-year-old company out of Japan. So we have no restrictions with banks on our building. So we do a continual build, which means a lot of people who buy a build to rent property, they might sign up for it and they got to wait a year, 14 months. Since we're on a continual build, we have properties that are ready now and 60 days from now, 90 days from now. So we can really start to build the portfolio a lot quicker. And along with that, we're one of the only groups I know that offer in-house financing. So right now we're locking in a lot of our investors on our dime at 4.75%. And, if you go into a normal mortgage company right about now, you're looking at over 7% on especially financing a duplex or a quad. And so by doing this, one of the important things, like I said, Dave, is scale. Most of our clients don't buy one property. Again, most have sold a business or are doing very well, and they're wanting to build a portfolio that they can have for generational wealth or extra income. And so they're looking normally at buying about 5 to 10 properties. So we have to do that larger scale in order to fulfill those needs. But two of the most important things, again, are financing, but then also property management. And we offer property management on all our properties. And for a lot of the incentives, we'll give 1 to 2 years of free property management for those first people who buy the properties through us.
Interesting. So, so an investor would invest in one particular unit, or
one property,
or potentially
one
five.
family,
Yeah, one at a
one
time.
duplex,
Yeah.
one quad.
Yeah.
Our
Yeah.
most successful investors usually own a combination of all of them. They put it all into the recipe. They all have their extra perks, I believe. I own single families, duplex, and quads. They all are residential in theme, which is a good thing, which I can go over. But they usually buy a combination of them.
Got it. And what are you seeing for average, return profile for these units?
You're looking at a 5 to 8 cap on one of our properties.
Okay. And from the cash flow perspective, I mean, what would an investor, would they receive monthly dividends based on this? Obviously.
Oh yeah, our goal is always cash flow off the bat. I know a lot of people are saying today, oh, you can't cash flow new construction right off the bat. You have to have a negative cash flow. That's not true. When we're building now to the scale we are and have gotten prices down and able to offer this low interest financing, we're getting people sometimes as high as 10, 11% cash on cash return right out of the gates. And our property counselors go through all of our different performance so people can see exactly where we're coming up with those numbers.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. And are there any tax breaks that investors can take advantage of?
Well, everyone's tax situation is different, but most of the people we work with, owning rental property is a very good way to hedge taxes. I know it's been very helpful for me, for my partner. So there's absolutely tax incentives to owning your own property as opposed to just, let's say, investing in a fund or a syndication. Now, those can be great, and I invest in those as well. But the ownership definitely has some real incentives that our people definitely enjoy.
Yeah. Are you seeing investors doing cost segs on the single families?
Some cost segs on some of the bigger ones. Obviously, there's some great depreciation. That first year that you own the property, normally the property tax is only taxed as land. So that is a huge savings in that first annual tax bill. And that's just a few of the incentives tax wise.
Yeah. And how about from a property management perspective? You mentioned there that sometimes you offer some property management on the front end. Is
Yeah.
that kind of a la carte type service, or how does that work?
No, well, we started management before we actually went into build to rent. In fact, how this started, my now building partner, his father owned a large property management company. I had a lot of properties that I moved over to them to manage. I didn't like managing my own properties. I had hired and fired 4 property managers in the Northeast Jacksonville area. They took them over, did a good job, and we knew that if we were going to do this model correctly, we had to have management in every market before we even started building. So management is something we've done even longer than building. And that is so key. My mentor used to say you can buy a property for 50 cents on the dollar, but if you don't have management in place, you could still lose money. So we always try to provide the management along with incentives. Being the builder and the property manager is a very rare thing. First off, we can offer those types of incentives. We're saying, okay, we'll squeeze our numbers down for the first year in management, because it's there more to please the client than to please us, because management's not the funnest part of the game, but it's something very important. So we can offer 1 to 2 years of free monthly management, which is great bottom line cash flow. And also takes a lot of the worries off. Some people find a new construction home, that's one thing, but if they can't find management, they put their money at risk. And we knew we had to take that out of the equation.
Yeah, interesting. So if an investor were to come in and say, invest in one or multiple of these properties, are there also ways to, drive the appreciation in that, right? Typically with multifamily, right, you're moving in, if you're doing a value add, we're putting in low flow toilets, you're adding a pet park, increasing revenue, things like that. Have you seen anything on the build to rent side where you can, actually force appreciation into these units?
It's been interesting on the forced appreciation. Picking the right market is absolutely key. We're able to get reports from the municipalities in different areas of Florida, and when they're behind on needed rental inventory, right there, that is an absolute North Star to some potential appreciation. So if we're behind on that needed rental inventory and we're building it, we know that we have a wind at our back. Another thing that's happened, Dave, which I'm sure you've heard about, which has been interesting because it's never really been our focus, but we're getting buyers from it, but it's also helping sales comparables, and they're already going up, which we didn't expect. We expected 2024 to be more of a flat market. That's what everyone was saying. As we're going into this election year, rates are going to start sliding down. We're already seeing that. It happens almost every time there's an election, but they're still stagnant. But we've seen some growth, especially in the duplex and quads. And what happened at the end of November was the FHA reduced the down payment. I don't know if you've seen that, where the down payment used to be, if you're a first-time home buyer going in to buy a duplex, you had to put 25% down. The FHA now, which is, the government-backed first-time home buyers loan, is now 5% to buy a quad or a duplex, or triplex. We don't build triplexes, but a 2-unit, 3-unit, or a 4-unit, all residential. That's a big difference for someone to be able to come up with the down payment at 5% opposed to 25%. So right there, we're seeing that cause some forced appreciation because more buyers have been able to come into the market for an inventory that's not always readily available, that being duplexes and quads. We're one of the only builders I know that actually build these. They take a little more to get approved and go through. So we're seeing some forced appreciation from that one guideline rule with the FHA.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I hadn't heard that. And, I've got some 20-year-olds that are looking at first-time homes, and, the market is just, so high for those first-time home builders. So that's pretty interesting if they can put,
look at. My 20-year-old son's looking at it as well, a duplex with us, because he can almost live for free. And the down payment is 3% to 5% opposed to 25%.
Yeah. Yeah, that's huge. Now, how about from an investment perspective? So you have a lot of investors coming into these deals. You talked about you guys providing financing, which is really unique. So let's say I came in, I wanted to buy one of these properties. I want to put it in my investment entity. Can I coordinate that financing with you, or how does that work?
Yeah, so most people, absolutely. So one of the jobs of our property counselor, some of them have been with me for 14 years, do their own deals. They understand. First thing we want to do is make sure we're a match. We're not a match for everybody. If people say we have absolutely no time, I say we're probably not for you. Put it into a fund or syndication. I always like to keep those guardrails up, Dave, of at least 2 hours a month. You might only use 5 minutes that month, to check your statement. Rents have come in, no charges, great. But I always say you should have about 2 hours a month readily available to be able to manage a small rental portfolio. If you have no time, that could be a problem. There might be other things where you just aren't comfortable owning properties or having tenants, then we're not for you. But the people we're for, once we figure that out, we try to pick the right properties based on what your goals are. Because although we invest in building very like similar fundamental markets, there's always a little bit of variance. So we try to match them up with that. The financing, I think, is one of the key elements that 99% of people use with us just because of the rate. So that is the absolute starting point of where we try to get them off on the right foot. Can you qualify? Again, to start a portfolio with us, you need about $80,000. That's just the starting point to start rolling it forward. But we've had great case studies where if you had invested $250,000 into the S&P 500 5 years ago, you would have earned about 10.4%. If you had invested $250,000 into a good real estate fund, one where you just wrote a check, it's real estate backed, you had earned about 13.5%. Now, if you had invested $250,000 like investors did and bought a small group of properties in our Jacksonville market, your annual average return would have been 69%, just over 69%. So this is the difference of owning properties. But as I said, if you don't feel comfortable owning properties, if you don't have at least 2 hours a month, then we try to steer you away. If you do like that, well, we try to set up everything that we possibly can, because how this all started, Dave, when we started doing this kind of very organically, was people would say to my partner and I, well, who do you use for mortgages? Who do you use for insurance? Who do you use for title? And so we didn't even have any financial affiliation, nor do we on most of those things. We own our own title company now, but it was just who do you use that's going to get the job done? And that's how we kind of formulated our team. So that way investors don't have to figure that on their own. Again, most of our people are successful. They don't want to create a second job. They want the work done for them. They want a plan of how they can build the portfolio, and they want to be able to be checking in on it, but not over micromanaging, if that makes sense.
What if everything you thought you knew about investing was wrong? Would you like to create a wealth strategy like the top 1% have and get exclusive access to top private equity deals that provide downside protection, tax efficiency, predictable cash flow, and have a lucrative upside? Discover how with the Pantheon Advantage and join our investor club today at pantheoninvest.com. Yeah, it makes perfect sense, Jim. And one of the reasons I really wanted to have you on the show, which I think is the real play here for us, right? Because our community, people understand that time is their greatest asset. We're looking to really scale our portfolios. But what I think is a really unique play is if you're looking to try to get real estate professional status or potentially have your wife,
Yes.
Say your spouse take on that duty, this is an ideal situation where you could get this small portfolio of properties. Like you said, it's kind of minimal management, but then that management of time is so well worth it to be able to pick up, real estate pro status.
Absolutely. And that's something you want to talk to your accountant about, but that is a very favorable thing to have.
Yeah. 750 hours, a year. But, I think being able to go into something that's much more turnkey like you have, versus just, trying to do everything on your own, source the property, understand the market, right? Bid on the property, make all these assumptions against players in the market, who do this every day for a living. I think you can get massive leverage by working with someone like Jim and his team, to do that.
Yeah, I totally agree. Totally agree.
So, Jim, tell us a little bit about your latest book. It sounds really exciting. I love the name of it, having the new moves. Because I really, when I think about all of this, it's really like, it's like chess moves, right, on the board. And you're creating your own chess board. And then what type of chess moves, right, are going to get you the most amount of leverage, the biggest amount of, bang for your buck. So tell us a little bit more about the book.
Yeah, the book's called The Passive Income Playbook, and it's definitely mine and my wife's journey through real estate. This started almost 25 years ago, and also includes my now building partner, the mistakes we made and the ways that we were busy, but we weren't effective. And some of the misconceptions we had about having more properties all of a sudden could be your absolute end goal. And sometimes that could take away accomplishment and give you extra headache. And I talk about how today my portfolio is much smaller in individual property numbers, but I have more cash flow or more equity than I ever have in my life. And a lot of that came from the types of properties I looked for, the types of properties I invested in, the way that I looked at long-term buy and hold. These are all an important part of the journey. And for me, what I'm always trying to encourage people to do is, it's not what the real estate is, it's what it provides. And most people we look at it, they're looking to buy back their time and have a good family life. And so we always talk about a legendary family life. With passive income, I've been able to do things my dad could only dreamed of. My dad, passed away a few years ago, and he struggled with money his entire life, him and my mom both, until I was able to retire them about 12 years ago. And that's what most of our people want. They have financial resource, but our properties are able to provide the space where it's not that second or third job. So we try to talk about the misconceptions of real estate, the type of real estate will actually take away your time, why new construction is such an interesting thing, and why all the larger institutions are trying to get into it, and how we as the little guys can still do it. And how do we do it where our family comes along for the ride? That's what the book is about.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so great that you're really sharing all those lessons, because I think most of us out there, we're all trying to learn, right? And this is something we weren't taught at any of the schools that are out there. The only place you learn is just by taking action and doing things, right? And then trying to, learn from books, podcasts, and these different resources. And luckily, we have these things available to us today. But when I started on my journey, there was just no resources at all, right? And trying to get access was super hard.
Very few.
Yeah. Yeah. So I like that. And then your other book, I really love, your focus on family, which is so important to us as well. We talk about having a holistic wealth strategy, right? Because that's what it's all about, right? It's not, the size of your portfolio. It's really the things that you care about in life, your health, your family, and those things. So tell us a little bit about your book that you wrote with your wife, The Family Board Meeting.
Yeah, the family board meeting is not something I ever planned on writing, Dave. I thought it was too simplistic. I shared it at a few mastermind groups, and people said, wow, you have to write a book on this. So my wife and I did, kind of begrudgingly, honestly, at first. It was a labor of love, but it was nice to get it out. And, for the first time, we were invited to, it had success, sold tens of thousands of copies, and then we were invited to go with a publisher. And he released our book, re-released it beginning of last summer. It actually went to #1 on Wall Street Journal, which was a total shock to us.
Wow.
But I think the important thing is, and of course it's something we're proud of, but I think it's the message, that the message resonates, that it's, there's a lot of people, they want to be successful in business, but they also want to be successful at home. And just like you said, there's not a lot of stuff out there from the early days that we had of financial education, passive income strategies, entrepreneurship. It just wasn't a lot out there. I've noticed the same. There's not a lot for busy entrepreneurs, professionals, real estate investors on how to have a good family life, especially that, matches with their personalities, their strengths, their weaknesses. So the family board meeting is about some simple principles and rhythms that we used, my wife and I, our 5 kids, to keep a strong family life. And it resonated. So we're thrilled with that. If you haven't read it, it's a super easy read. Again, I'm an ADD entrepreneur, so I made it a short book. I always joke it gets read at, if I go to a conference and a lot of people have books there, mine always gets read first, not because it's the best, because it's short. and But I think it's got a good message to it, and it's helped a lot of families. There's probably for our board meeting strategy, our family board meeting strategy. I think we've estimated about 300,000 families are using it now.
Wow, that's amazing. So can you unpack some of the tips and key principles in the book?
Yeah. So let me give you let me give you two main principles to start with. One is something I call the one-to-one principle. And this is, if you don't hear anything else, I always say this. That's okay. Just hear this. You got to separate the parts to strengthen the whole. It is an unfair advantage for having a strong family life. So you have a husband or wife and 3 kids. You got to spend time with just yourself, just time with your spouse, just time with each of the individual kids. One-on-one time is so overlooked. And I go into this about studies and facts that we just overlook it. And, I always joke, I grew up in an Irish Catholic family, which means you have like 4,000 cousins and, big gatherings, and those are great. But it's one-on-one time that really helps deepen the relationship, that gets you under the surface, where bigger conversations can get out, where, your spouse or your child actually feels extremely important to you, which sometimes when you're moving fast, they can misinterpret that. So asking yourself the question, Dave, for everyone listening, do I spend scheduled one-on-one time with my spouse, with my children? I have an almost immovable date night every week with my wife, even with 5 kids ranging from 2 to 20, non-negotiable. And that's been an absolute key to our marriage. I spend a day a quarter with each one of my children, one-on-one. They plan the day. We go all in. And it's been some of the most groundbreaking pieces of our relationship occur on that one day. And that is a starting point, the one-to-one. Something else that I would challenge people on, a principle I go into, is what I call intermittent tech fasting. We've all heard of intermittent fasting. Sure. If you're into health, I've read about it. It helps weight maintenance, muscle tone, organ revitalization. When you're doing intermittent fasting, you're not giving up eating, right? You're just saying, I'm only going to eat between this time and this time. What I've found with technology, and there's a lot of study behind this, I'm not saying to get rid of it. You and I wouldn't be having this great conversation today from Sarasota to Costa Rica. However, you got to have times of complete and total unavailability, because we're not as multitasked abilitied as we think we are. It gets in the way. It's an insult if you are pulling that out. So when I'm on that date with my wife every week, my phone's not invited. When I take these one-on-one days with each of my kids each quarter, my phone's not allowed. Neither is theirs, but I set the tone. And you start to feel, until you actually pull it out of the diet, where your phone's always there, your laptop's always there, until you pull it out and spend a couple hours without it, you don't realize until you don't have it how often you're doing that grab, how often it's interrupting you. So many, I've worked with thousands of families now. I can't tell you how many teens have said in retrospect, they were about to open up to their parent about something. They had something really heavy on them. I'm talking the tough stuff we don't really want our kids to go through. And their parents just seem too busy. They're on the phone. They're getting on a text or an email or a useless Facebook thread. So these periods of tech fasting, of intermittent tech fasting, where you're totally unavailable to outside, but there for what's right in front of you, you couple that with one-on-one and do that on a nice schedule. It's not going to get you all the way there, Dave, but it's going to do you a lot of good and get you a far way there.
Yeah, I just love that, Jim. We're really living in this world of evolutionary mismatch, because when we started on this planet, we did not have all these technological conveniences that we do today. And I think it's actually taking its toll on us, as a civilization. It's really kind of death by 1,000 cuts. And that's why, we're having all these increased rates of the the top diseases, cancer, you name it, all of these things are really building up. But I really love your, concept around the one-on-one, because I think it just really fosters that, deeper connection. And like you say, it's so easy to have kind of a surface level discussion, with family members. Hey, how was your day? That was good. You go into the game. I've got you. And most of the time we find ourselves talking about logistics, actually, you've
Yeah.
got him. Are you taking care of the dog? Are you going here? How are you going to get to the airport? All of these kind of, basic things. And I think, we're really, not serving ourselves well, because we have the opportunity to have these deeper connections. And, my kids are now in their 20s. And what I find in this chapter that's really challenging is, they've all flown the nest. So how do you still, create that, overall family bond, that connection? Everyone's at different places, totally independent, doing their own things and stuff. But I really like that. Just if you can carve out the time to have the individual connections, then you're stronger together as a group.
Yeah. Well, and what I've found, Dave, for friends whose children are in their 20s. So when I first wrote this book years ago, I had a friend, owned a marketing company, busy guy, had 7 children, 7. And I think the youngest one was 22. And he said, I'm not going to be able to have a half day. They're all over the country, a half day every quarter. I'm just setting myself up for a kill, their schedules. So what he's done probably for 8 or 9 years now, Dave, one day a year. One day a year, he plans a special day with each of those 7 kids. And I think the youngest one now is 24 or 25. One day a year after year after year. Now, of course, they have times in between and other things, but that's just their day, a full day. So 7 days a year, he's going somewhere, wherever it has to be, to have a full day with each one of their kids, doing something they want to do, fun, no phone distraction. And where do you think he'll be? I mean, I look back, I wish I had had that with my father from 22 to, 47 to when he passed away when I was 47. I didn't get that. And so even if you get one day a year without the phone, without the distraction, one-on-one, enjoying each other, creating the space for maybe some deeper conversation or laughs and just, again, full focus, where could you be? And that's what I always encourage to people. It really is a game changer.
Yeah, that's so powerful, right? You're just building up those meaningful experiences, year after year. We've been working on a family retreat in our family where everyone gets together, and we can kind of focus on, really our family constitution, what's kind of important to us, and then trying to create those new, bonding type of experiences, right? Versus just the typical get together for Thanksgiving or something, which is always, just chaotic for so many reasons.
Yeah, no, I love it. Yeah, that's a lot of the most successful families I've met, Dave, especially how do we make the most of our wealth, to have that kind of take holidays and that out. Of course, there's holidays, but they do like one vacation adventure a year. And they go somewhere and they do something really fun. All the family, everyone comes, and it's just a great get together time. And it kind of is a reunification. And then they might bring in, like we do, like you said, some sort of light learning where they're still learning together. They're in a cool place, enjoying that light learning, but they get to look forward to that every year as a group. And yeah, there's holidays and the other things, but this vacation adventure is on their terms, on their schedule, what everyone decides. And my wife and I plan to, our goal, Dave, is to do that for the next 50 years if I can, 60 years with my kids if I can. Every year we want to have one big adventure, even as they go off and get married. And, that's going to be kind of our annual gift.
That's awesome, Jim. I love that. And I really appreciate you shared that with the audience, because I think that's, so powerful. And, like you talked about, we're focused on wealth building and we talk about real estate and all of these passive income and all these things, but it's really the outcome that we're looking for, right? Is having more qualitative time and being with our families and things. So really appreciate that wisdom. If you could give just one piece of advice to our listeners about how they could accelerate their own wealth trajectory, what would it be?
Don't get wrapped up in tons of sweat and tiers and volume in real estate. Own less of better quality with less leverage. That's it. If I could go back, I would have owned less property, better quality, less leverage. And when you're in that position, you can really do well. The real estate serves you instead of the other way around. So that's the advice I give to all my friends, all my family, who say, hey, if we're getting in and we look at it, but especially for the people, they've worked hard and they have some net worth now and they've done something. They're like, we know we got to be more involved in real estate. I say, great. Don't worry about getting into the 100 house club. Like I did that and passed it. It's about effectiveness. It's about the net numbers, the performance. So own less, better quality, less leverage. You're in good position. Grow it that way. You can be in great shape.
Awesome. Really great words and wisdom, Jim. Appreciate that. And if people want to reach out and learn more about your build to rent or check out your books, what's the best place?
Yeah, you can find the family board meeting on Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, anywhere books are sold. Also for the new one, the Passive Income Playbook. If you're looking to grow your real estate portfolio and really interested in build to rent, it's a great book, a lot of case studies of successful clients, our own journey. You can go to jjplaybook.com, Dave, and we're actually offering a free digital copy right now if you'd like that. And that was a #1 seller as well.
Awesome. Really appreciate your time today, Jim. Thanks for coming on.
No, it's great to be here, Dave. Thanks for having me.
Awesome.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Wealth Strategy Secrets. If you'd like to get a free copy of the book, go to holisticwealthstrategy.com. That's holisticwealthstrategy.com. If you'd like to learn more about upcoming opportunities at Pantheon, please visit pantheoninvest.com. That's pantheoninvest.com.